begin your book by tracing the history of the latest Gaza war to the separation of Gaza by Israel and then the siege. When Israeli settlements were first expelled from Gaza, many people were hopeful that it meant the beginning of a two-state solution, but in fact it was an isolating of a people so that Israel could freely launch assaults, and that's sort of what's happened over the last few years. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, we are tracing the first anniversary of this war to today. It's the beginning of the 51-day war. It was not the 50-day war. If it was the 50-day war, we would be excising what happened 1 year ago today out of the narrative, which is that Israel launched airstrikes on military installations connected to Hamas in the Gaza Strip, which led to Hamas's first official retaliation and deployment of long-range rockets towards Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So we have to keep that in mind, that this was a 51-day war. But when did this war actually start? The war on Palestine started in 1947, 1948, and it produced the Gaza Strip as we understand it today, which is as a warehouse for surplus humanity, something that's very anachronistic in human history. Where there's an unwanted population which has been ethnically cleansed, 750,000 indigenous people forced from their land, forced from their homes, and then ghettoized in this tiny strip of land. Now 72 to 80% of the population of the Gaza Strip are refugees, and they cannot return to their land, their property, inside what is now Israel, the self-proclaimed Jewish state, because they're not Jews. And so they're living in this walled-off ghetto. But from 1967 to about 2006, the Israeli military occupied the Gaza Strip from within. Ariel Sharon in the 1970s began establishing Jewish settlements inside the Gaza Strip. It was a failed project that he brought to an end in 2000, began bringing to an end in 2005. He formed a new party. Sharon was one of the founders of the right-wing Likud party, but he started a new party, Kadima, which brought together centrist elements, or those who were considered centrist in Israel, in order to create political capital, in order to establish political capital to get the vote he needed for what was known as the disengagement, the removal of the last 9,000 religious nationalist settlers. The army had to go in, remove these settlers. So liberals in Israel and in the US saw these images of these religious nationalist settlers being removed by the Israeli army, and they said, Israel truly wants peace. It's removing settlers. In fact, the settlers were being moved into a settlement block in the West Bank. The Bush administration guaranteed that those major settlement blocks that separate Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, which was supposed to be the future capital of a Palestinian state, from the West Bank, would be placed in Israeli hands forever in the event of any peace agreement with the puppetized Palestinian Authority.